Hello friends! If you have an Apple II computer like I do and also have a soldering iron, this video might just be for you. Today I'll be showing you how to build this nifty low-cost SD card drive kit from Koba of KERO'S Mac Mods, and later I'll be showing you some nice cases that I had 3D printed at JLCPCB. The product name is SP2SD V2. Try saying that 5 times quickly. It's the revision 2 of K's original kit, which now includes a display, faster performance, and functionality improvements. The SP in the name stands for SmartPort, and my understanding is that SmartPort is a communications protocol for storage devices. So it allows your Apple II to know how to communicate with the Apple 3.5-inch Unidisc floppy disk drive, which uses 800K disks, and also compatible hard disk drives. The SP2SD emulates both of those drive types and allows you to store disk images on modern SD card media. So to use K's kit, if you have an original Apple IIc like mine, which has a 5.25-inch floppy drive, you need to make sure that you have either ROM 0 or 3 or 4, or have one of the modern ROM replacement solutions like ROM 4X or ROM XC. Here's the backside of my Apple IIc. By the way, it's black because I put a lovely MacUfix case on it. Be sure to check out my video on that if you've not seen it. When Apple released the IIc in 1984, they originally intended the external floppy drive connector here to attach to 5.25-inch floppy drives, as shown by the little 5.25-inch floppy drive icon here. That very first IIc model came with ROM revision 255 on a 16KB chip, which didn't have SmartPort. SmartPort's release coincided with the September 1985 debut of the 3.5-inch Unidisc floppy drive. Apple added SmartPort through the IIc's floppy drive connector in ROM revision 0 stored on a 32KB chip. Later ROM revisions 3 and 4 also support SmartPort, as well as the Apple IIc Plus, which has ROM 5. What you see here is the standard kit that includes, of course, the box, the printed documentation, the 1-inch OLED display, or actually, to be precise, 0.96-inch. We have the main PCB here. Then we have the controller board. Mine says it's version 2.03. Then we have the micro SD card board, resistor, diode, LED, then 4 push-button switches, 3 of which are the same. One of them is at a right angle. Then we have our 20-pin header connector for the required ribbon cable, and then a 7-pin connector for the OLED display. And because the Apple IIc, IIc Plus, and 2GS require K's optional DB19 adapter, I was sure to get one of those kits too from K, which includes the main PCB, 3D printed DB19 connector, male pins for that connector, and the 20-pin header for the ribbon cable. I already had a couple 30cm foot-long ribbon cables, so I didn't need to get one from K. Now here is the product page on K's website, and I just want to mention first of all that I'm using the Chrome browser. Normally I use Safari. I'm a big fan of Safari, but for some reason there are a few features on this site that just don't quite work right on Safari, so please use Chrome or Firefox. I found both of those browsers to work just fine. Now this $40 price that you see here is set up for the kit that I have, which includes the DB19 adapter. It says DP here, that's just a spelling error, don't worry about that. And if you have a different computer than I have, for example, I have an Apple IIc, but if you have an Apple II Plus or a IIe, you won't need the optional DB19 adapter, and deleting that brings your cost down to $32. However, if you have an Apple II Plus or IIe, then you're going to need to have a Grappler Minus, or a soft SP card, or a Lyran card. Now, if you have an Apple IIc like mine, and let's go ahead and restore back that DB19 adapter kit. But you don't have a ribbon cable, you can add one. That'll bring your cost to $46. Adding an SD card tacks on another $8. And if you have no soldering skills or just lazy, you can get everything pre-built for you and as a fully assembled kit for a total of $64. Now, as you can see over here on the right side of the screen, the shipping charges to the United States are not too bad, at $23, but to make it even more worthwhile, you can always consider adding a few other goodies to your order. Kay really has a lot of great stuff here for both the Mac and the Apple II. And by the way, you should definitely click the link here to go to the English store, or you can go up here, change from JA, Japanese, to EN, English. Either way, you're going to be taken to this page, where you can see that, hey, look, you've got some discount information that you otherwise wouldn't be able to see. And this is timed quite nice. Now, this video is going to be on YouTube for a while, so this is probably going to change in the future. But as of April of 2025, he is combating the tariffs for US customers only if you use this coupon code and only if you have a US address. So whenever you check out, you're going to put in the address and then it will apply. Now, if you're anywhere else in the world, he's not going to leave you out. You're going to get 5% off. This code cannot be used in conjunction with the above code as it says here, but if you're outside the United States, you can get an additional 5% off. However, the key to everything here is this. It says it's applied when the product total exceeds $50 US. So if your product total does not, then the codes will not apply. And then he's got other terms here. And again, this all may change either by the time I release this video or sometime afterwards. So please be aware of that. But always want to go to the English version of the site to make sure that you get special notices like this. And here's my soldering setup. I have my older model Hakko set to 350 degrees Celsius. That temperature is important, and I'll describe that later. I have thin solder. I'll put a link in the text description below. You don't want to use too thick solder because then it'll be harder to solder some of these pins. You'll get solder bridges. So the thinner stuff is better, I think. And I have a little flux just in case I need it. And then I have a sponge. I have my cleaner, my parts, and we're going to start off with the PCB and the diode, resistor, and LED. Now, first things first, you want to orient yourself on this side of the board. If you flip it over, you can see it looks like this with a sticker on it. We're not going to put the components on the sticker side. We're going to put the components in on this side. The sticker side, where this sticker is anyway, is the solder side. And as I said, we're going to do the diode, which is here, the resistor, which is here, and then the LED, which is here. Now, the key to getting the diode in correctly is you want to be sure to match the stripe that's printed here, which is on your left, to the gray stripe on your diode, which is also on your left. If you reverse it, it's going to be a problem. So then you can use a lead bender, or I just gonna bend it with my fingers here, and then just put him in. And then when I spread the legs on the bottom, it looks like that. We can go ahead and put our resistor in, and our resistor, it doesn't matter which way. Bend it with my fingers here, and put him in, like that. And then on the reverse side, I mean, it's good to hold them in by pressing down the other side and then bending the leads. But technically, I've got the weight of the table on him. And then we can solder those in. Put a little solder on my iron first. Put him down. There we go. And if you don't like your board wiggling around, you can buy one of those helping hands and put him in some clips to hold him secure. A lot of people swear by those. But if you want to go on the cheap, you can still do it, like I'm showing you. And I'll just check to make sure everything's over here is okay. And, everything looks fine. So what we can do now is snip off the excess. Okay. And then we flip our board back over and we can see D2. It's an LED, D for diode, right? So Kay says that the length of, you can also see the body. There's a, on the right side, There's a longer part to it, and then the shorter part's on the left. But it's, in terms of lead length, that's the opposite. The short lead goes to that longer part on the inside. And it's the short lead that we want to put in the square pad marked K. K for Koba, right? No, it's a cathode, although it's spelled with a C. Now, I just should mention, though, that if you put a case on, it's going to cover up your LED, and you're not going to be able to see it unless you poke a hole through the case. K suggests you just move your LED with wires to a different spot so the light will come out. It's really up to you. But what you can do is just solder in the LED and then make your decision later. Although he says if the light, this is pretty bright. So if the light is going to bother you by firing straight up, he suggests you can bend it over like so. Put the leads in and then have him firing out that way. And that way the light isn't going to come up. It's going to come towards, it's going to go this way. And so you have to think about that before you solder in the LED. How it's going to be oriented on your desk, if you're going to run it naked, or put it in a case. And how the LED light will shoot out is going to depend on how you mount it here. So again, we want to put in the short lead into the K. And so you want to solder in one lead first, and then we want to check and make sure he's straight before we tack down the other side. So again, I put some solder on my little guy there first, and then I'll put him on the square lead, or on the square pad. Come on there. Okay, and then I flip him over and check him, and I'm going to leave him straight up. It looks fine. I was putting pressure on him, so he was okay. And he's nice and straight, so I wanted him straight. Then we're going to do, you can see it's marked the ground lead there, which is the short one. Now if you add flux on it, it's even easier to solder. It's just a little bit more messy when you do the final cleaning. But that's up to you. The solder, at least most solder, has flux in it. It really wouldn't flow at all if it didn't. But you could always put on more. Okay, so those three parts are now done. Next, we want to put in our 3 push buttons, and they should be fairly easy to pop in there. You just want to make sure they're flat. The body is flush with the PCB underneath. And then you can opt to either hold it from the other side or bend the leads. And it's probably best to do it one at a time. I put in all 3, but it depends on what you're capable of, right? So I'm going to start off here by tacking them down. And this could be one of those times that flux might actually help. Yep. And I'm just making sure that they are down on there. And I'm looking at it from the angle, from the side now, just to make sure. Yeah. Yeah, if you don't use flux, it bubbles up a little bit more. Okay, and then in the top left corner, we've got our pads for the angled, right angle, 90-degree switch. It's got 4 pins. It can really only go in one way, right? Only one way, like that. So that you push him here, like that. He's down nice and solid there into the holes. He's held in pretty good. So just have to be careful. You don't want to put your finger on him because there's metal. You're gonna fry your finger if you put him on there, but he's on there pretty solid. I'll go ahead and put on some flux. You don't have to put on the flux, but it will make your connections prettier. Put on too much solder. And you don't want to touch him for a while because he's pretty hot. He's got a metal body there. And now for the part I don't like. This is the SD card board, and unfortunately we've got to bend these to be straight. Right now they're at a 90-degree right angle, and Kay did not build this board. It's pre-assembled, but the connector, yeah, it's built for something else, so we're gonna have to bend these. And we're gonna find out how tricky it is to do that. Well, it seems like I succeeded, sort of. Maybe it needs to be a little bit more. Even more, maybe? Oh. Well, the connector is soldered on aiming this way, so it's not perpendicular with the board. So, the pins, regardless of the connector, the pins need to be perpendicular with the board, right? Would be nice if the factory would have done the correct job, making it straight. All right. So maybe that's more perpendicular. So now I have to do all the others. And I don't know if I need to show you that, but basically you're just clamping one of them, right? As much as you can. And then slowly pull up on him. And then slide your pliers towards the plastic as you slowly bend. Well, and they also need to be straight in the other direction as well. That's why I said, oh, goodness gracious. Metal fatigue. You don't want to bend it too much or they'll break, right? They're pretty durable, but yeah, it's a fiddly mess like I thought it would be. I don't mind the soldering, but this kind of work is fiddly. I don't like fiddly work. I'll do the rest off camera. And here's the end result. It didn't take too long. It's a lot easier to do it when I'm doing it off camera, because I can use a lens to zoom in a little bit more for my own eyes, right? But yeah, there we go. And so what's going to happen now is the pin side goes down, right? Because the opposite side of this board is the solder side, like we discussed before. And what do you know? It goes right in. So that's how it needs to mount. And then your SD card side is over here. But one thing I'm noticing is that, let's see if I can help you to see it. You can see that the connector standoff height is higher than this side. So to be able to prop that up a little bit. I have automotive tape, which is soft, but that's very thin. I saw a big bad biologist use two-sided tape, and now I understand why. It's to make it flat and level. So I think it would be best for me to do the same. And tape is not included in the kit. Two-sided tape, it has some thickness to it, and I could put it right on top of there. Well, I found a piece of thin two-sided tape. It's a cushiony type piece, and it fits in pretty nicely, and that pretty much makes it level. So I think I'm going to go with that. And he just goes right on there. I want to make sure he's straight, because the pins have a little bit of a play in them, right? So I have to use the lines, silkscreen lines, to line it up. Seems like it's in there okay. And then we don't want to press on him too hard. Just make sure tape is sticking. I cleaned it off with alcohol before I put the tape on, just to make sure it's going to stick. And now that it's stuck on there, it will hold it while I solder on the solder side. All right, let's see how it goes without flux. Well, not as good as I thought. Flux makes it flow better. And I was made absolutely sure I got rid of any solder bridges. You don't want to have any of those pins connected to each other, so you'll need to check it under a magnifying glass if you can't see it normally. And then we want to snip off our wires, leads. And now we want to solder in our 7-pin header into J2, which is the bottom row, not the top row, because on the back, on the top row, it's covered with a sticker. So we want to stick it in like that. You do not want to put it in the J3. That's reserved for LCDs of a different size. I have the standard 1-inch. So for that, it goes in J2. Okay, now Kay suggests if you can put the clip to hold it, that's probably best. But for me, I probably wouldn't get it in straight either way. So what I'm going to do is just tack down 1 pin. And that way, I can adjust it. Because I know it's not perfectly perpendicular right now. But that's okay. Because I'm only doing 1 pin. Then, check the other side. Yeah, it's a little bit off. So while I manipulate the other side, I can melt that. And you want to make sure it's as straight as possible. It looks straight to my eyes, but on camera maybe it's not. But anyway, you don't want to solder in the rest until it is straight. And then I'm going to start tacking it down from the opposite side over here. Now this sticker is now starting to bother me, so I'm going to take it off. It doesn't matter anymore. And now we can add flux and finish the other connections off. Again, we want to make sure that we're not going to accidentally bridge pins with solder bridges. You don't want to do that. And they all came out pretty nice. And now we want to connect our 20-pin header, and you can see how the silk screen is printed. You got this cutout, so the cutout is on the bottom. Very important to put the cutout on the bottom, right? You don't want to have it flipped around. There's a little bit of play in there, but that's how we're going to put him in. So I'm going to tack him down with a single pin first. And then Flip him over to make sure he's okay. Yeah, and he seems to be flush. Okay. I decided to put my ribbon cable in there as a heatsink. And that way, if you accidentally put too much, or if you put your soldering iron on there too long, right, the heat will flow into this and it'll be less likely that you're going to damage your connector. So don't hold the soldering iron on there too long, but having the ribbon cable on there should help. Next we need to do the controller board, which has the little USB connector on it. And thankfully this is pre-assembled for us with perfect sized little feet here. On Kay's documentation, at least in April when I was making this video, he was having people put on the feet, but it seems like he put them on, which is nice. So we want to get everything right. So here is the area. And it says over here, USB. USB is where my right finger is on it. Let's see here. It's not quite fitting in. It was a pretty tight fit, but I was able to snap him down. And it's actually good that it's a tight fit because it stays in there. And it stays in there good, so I don't have to worry about now when I'm soldering to hold him on, because he's held on pretty good. But of course, even though my feet are sticking out, I mean, nicely, and it's all secured and not flopping around, you want to make sure that yours is in just as well. You don't want to solder it in at an angle, but chances are yours is tight like mine, so it is good. And just to make sure, I'm going to check him. I'm not going to show you, but I'm going to check it for myself. And yes, I confirmed all is well. So I can continue with the soldering, and I'll speed it up so it's not so boring. Now, because we have a huge mess of flux on the board, we need to clean that off with alcohol. I'm going to use my 99% IPA to do that. And it's important to do this before we put on our OLED. And here is what it looks like after the cleaning. I just used a toothbrush and poured my 100% 99% IPA over it into a plastic bin, and just let it stay on there for a while, and then did a little bit of scrubbing. And you keep doing that, wipe it down with a tissue, and eventually it will stop feeling sticky. And that's really the key. You want to make sure you repeat the cleanings until it stops feeling sticky. And I didn't dump any on this side, but some of it will get on this side a bit. And I just used a blower that I used to clean off my lens, a bulbous blower, to kind of blow it out of the crevices. But I'd still say leave it overnight, you know, so it gets out of the tape, and because we put two-sided tape underneath the slot here, right? So you just want to make sure it completely dries out. 100% IPA is going to dry out faster than your 70% rubbing alcohol, because that rubbing alcohol has water in it. So that's why I recommend 99 to 100% IPA, since it dries faster and it's stronger too, so it has more cleaning effect. And just make sure that you scrub it and repeat it enough until it stops feeling sticky. And then after that, we're going to have our connector here to put on our organic LED. Just take off that little guy there. Then just plunk him down, which is very easy to do. I'm not going to take off the protector yet, but basically, as far as this board is concerned, we're done. And now it's time to assemble the adapter. By the way, if you have an Apple II Plus or the IIe, you do not need to do this. You can just skip over this part. You don't need to buy this adapter. And the first step is to break off these pins one by one, just by wiggling them a few times. There we go. So now what we want to do is, you can see on the back of this connector that the width of the holes is wider than over on this side. And that's because Kay has nicely drilled these out for you to make your life a lot easier. And so what you're going to need to do is take the short end. There's a short end and a fat end, right? Hold the fat end and put the short end in there. Now if you push down with your finger, you're going to penetrate your finger, and you don't want to do that. So, stealing the idea from Big Bad Biologist in his video, he took the blunt end of a tool and he used that to press it in. Let's see if I can achieve that. Now, if you flip it on the flip side, you can see it's coming through, but not quite enough. So, okay. And I didn't push it with all my might, but I pushed it down enough to where you can see the pins coming out. And eventually it stops. It will not go any further. So you don't want to push it with all your might so hard that you're going to damage the connector, but it's pretty durable, so you don't really have to worry about that. Just treat it a little bit carefully. Do another one. And some of the holes on the other side may be tighter than others. Okay, there it goes. Okay, plunk. Went down in there. So far we've got two. And then just keep on going. Okay, we got them in there. So now, here's how they look on the pin side. Then we have to put in the silkscreen side, right? The silkscreen side is where we put it on. You don't want to put it on this way where there's no silk. You want to put it on, it says hide this text. Hide this text with the connector. Hide this text with the connector. So then, you know, obviously you're not going to put it on this way. See the shape? The upper part on the silk is fatter. The lower part is narrower. So we have to do it that way, right? And so I'm going to see if I can get it on there without having to do any fiddling. Big Bad Biologist had to use his needle nose pliers to squish the ends to make them fit. But I tested them beforehand and they seemed to fit okay, doing them one at a time. But if they're not perpendicular to the board, then you wouldn't be able to do them all, just because they're about as fat as the holes are here. So I get some of them in, but not all of them. And I think lining it up is the key. I'm going to stop the video here for a minute. Well, I'm pleased to report I was able to get them in using some metal tweezers and a magnifying glass so I could see up close. And then just readjusting each pin. I didn't have to smash them. I was hoping I didn't have to, and I didn't. And you want to make sure that the connector is flush with the board. And then we can now start soldering. So that's the ticket. You just want to make sure that each of the pins go into their respective holes, and then the whole connector will come down. And you're going to have to lay it down flat. You can't do it at an angle like this, right? You have to push them into the holes, push the whole connector down onto the PCB straight on and not at an angle. And then whenever there's a pin, if you're using magnifying glass, you can see which pin isn't going in, and you can use your tweezers to adjust it, and that's how I got it in. By the way, if the video looks clearer now, I realized I was using the 1080p setting on my camera for a lot of the footage prior to this, the soldering, so Sorry about that. Hopefully this looks a bit clearer than the other footage. Now these pads, there's not really much there, so I'm not sure if I can do it without flux, but we're gonna see. The problem is that Kay said don't put, it's a 3D printed connector, so you can't hold your soldering iron for more than 2 seconds at a time or you'll melt the connector. So it's a little bit tricky. Yeah. I love flux because it helps the solder to flow. I hate flux because it's a mess to clean up, but looks like we're gonna have to apply it to make it easier to solder these guys. Well, I spent a fair amount of time off camera trying to get as much solder all the way around each pin as possible, but yet keeping that 2-second rule. And it's tough, especially on the right side, the top two ones. I got it on one side pretty good, but not all the way around. The ideal would be to have a female connector. No, not on your Apple II, because that's unwieldy to solder, but to have a female connector to connect to this so that the pins aren't going to move out of place or get dislodged. But as you can see, it looks like I did a fine job on the soldering, such that they were not, I did not melt the connector surrounding each pin. The pins are still straight in the way that they should be. Okay, so now it's time for the final connector, which has to be connected on the back, and that has to match up with the silk screen. You can see that the hole in the top needs to go up there. So that means we need to mount him in like this and then solder him in from the other side. I'm going to hold him down, then tack him on either side. And that's holding him on. So now I can just do the rest. And here is the circuit board after cleaning. Could have probably gotten a bit more solder on these here. It got one side pretty good, but getting these, I don't know, it didn't quite get there, but it's good enough for now. And then on the flip side, we see our pins are still in nice condition. Our solder joints. Pretty good here. So we're good to go. And now I'll power on the 2C. And hey, everything's working, right? Great. So it's not going to boot because we have to choose a file, and I already have the SD card set up. So I'll choose one of the total replays. And then we'll try it again, and I'll talk about how to set up an SD card later. And there we go. Instant replay. Fabulous. If you visit K's GitHub, you'll find 3 different case options available, which you can download and print yourself, or you can order a professional print from JLCPCB, PCBWay, or a similar service local to you. I recommend using a case to prevent accidental shorts or accidentally scratching the top of your Apple II. I use JLCPCB to order prints of the cases by Stephen Arsenal, these 2 here, and Javier Rivera, all of these parts here. I didn't have the STL files of Alan Williams at the time of my order, so unfortunately I can't show you that one. But I ordered them all in black to match my black MacUFX case, and I ordered Javier's case parts in what they call JLC black resin. And I wasn't sure if Stephen's case would print well in that, so I printed in JLC resin and also in nylon as well. Now nylon is rough to the touch, but it's quite durable and flexible. It won't show scratches or fingerprints at all. Now resin though, it prints matte, not glossy, so if you have finger oil it can pick up fingerprints. However, the cases are more rigid than nylon, and the resin prints are more precise than nylon as well. Now, as you can see, the design language is a bit different between Javier's case and Stephen's, but which is better will likely vary from person to person. Now, I paid $8.05 for Javier's case in resin, not including shipping. I paid $4.90 for Stephen's case in resin, not including shipping, and I paid $6.80 for his nylon case, not including shipping. Now, Javier's case costs more because, as you can see, it uses more parts. But keep in mind, those prices were before the Trump tariffs on Chinese goods. I ordered Stephen's transparent display cover too, but JLC tried and failed to print it 3 times. Stephen told me his STL files are designed for FDM printers. So if you use JLC to print Stephen's case, just order his top and bottom case parts and not the lens. JLC requires the thinnest part of any STL file to be 0.8 millimeters thick or thicker. You can often get away with breaking that rule at JLC, but not with Stephen's lens, unfortunately. Here's how Javier's case looks on my 2C. As you can see, Javier's case is a very rich, deep black that goes very nicely with my black MacUFX case and my black eYoYo monitor. The cover on top just plunks down right atop the LCD. The LCD actually installs after you install the case. So that way, if you want to use a larger LCD, you just simply would not use this plastic top, and then you would just plug in your LCD. You wouldn't have a frame around it. It wouldn't maybe look so nice because it wouldn't, be fully covered like this. But anyway, the case is intended for the smaller LCD, and you can see the red LED just very, very slightly. It may be difficult to see on camera, but I can see it just ever so slightly through the P here. And whenever the blue LED lights in a dark room, you can kind of see it shining through the case a little bit here too. The ribbon cable, I don't know, some people may like it, other people may not. I couldn't find one in black, unfortunately, so your only other option is gray, and I decided against that. I didn't really like that compared to this. This looks a little bit Apple-esque, I guess you could say. On the flip side, it's got a nice design to it, but the thing is that in order to keep it from sliding, I had to add these little rubber feet that has 2-sided tape on it, and I was able to get those on Amazon. And so if you don't do that, it'll just be slipping and sliding the whole time. Over here is the reset button. You'll very rarely use that, but the thing is, you're not able to put a finger in there, and so you'd have to use a tool in order to be able to get to that. The main caveat that I see is the SD card slot, because it's deeply recessed and you're not going to be able to get a fingernail in there to pop it in and out. So you're going to have to use a tool. And that's a little bit unfortunate, but it can't be helped with the design being what it is. Now, if I look at Stephen's case, this is the resin version. As you can see, it's the same color. And if we compare with the nylon version here, the nylon is a very dark gray, not a black. So it doesn't look bad, honestly. It doesn't. And actually, because it's a little bit rough, you may get away without it needing any kind of feet at all. However, unfortunately, when I tried to put the case together with the PCB inside, it wouldn't go together. I guess my solder blobs were a little bit too big or something like that. I've told Stephen about it, but I don't know if there's going to be a revision to the case or not. Probably cutting the solder shorter would work. The main issue is that some of the on the controller board, the underside solder was touching these two ribs, and these two ribs are needed for reinforcing the bottom piece. So that's just my experience, and I can't say that it's a bad case because I really like many aspects of this case, specifically this reset button. It's a button that you can actually push on it, and you don't need a tool. And the other thing is, because there's no top piece that covers up the LCD, you can put your fingernail in and pop out the SD card. So it's really very nice. And also these buttons, they have little parts on the inside that, unfortunately, I had to break them off to make them work. And you have to work each button like 20 times in nylon in order for the little hairs to get pushed out of the way. But finally I was able to do it. It's just that I couldn't close the case. And on the resin version, you have to work the buttons a little bit, and I had to break these as well. But basically it's just a matter of taste, I guess you can say, in whether you like this deeper black or the nylon. But the nylon is rough to the touch. This is matte, same with Javier's, so basically the same here. And unfortunately I don't have Alan's case, so I can't compare that. You'll just have to look online with the photos there. But well, just take your pick. I think that if you can get the case closed, you may be happy with this, but Javier's has some nice features too. His buttons are a little bit more wobbly because they're separate pieces that are printed. And the buttons on Stephen's case are not wobbly at all, but they come in close contact with the case itself. So if the case isn't cleanly cut, it may be more difficult to push them initially. So there are caveats to everything, you know. And well, my experience with JLCPCB was pretty good, just except for the minimum widths. You know, that's why I couldn't print the transparent lens cover. Also, the difference between the lens openings is different. Javier's is a little bit narrower, so it covers up all of the icky part you don't want to see. And this opening is a little bit wider, so you'll be able to see not only the display, but also a little bit of the surrounding area around it too. So that's just something to note on the differences. And both of them have cutouts on the side for the USB connector. And that brings this video to a close. Now there's much more I wanted to show you. First of all, I wanted to show you performance compared to the floppy EMU from Big Mess of Wires. I also wanted to show you how to properly put files on the SD card. It's not hard, but I wanted to give you an overview of that. And I also wanted to show you a little bit more about how to use the menus and the buttons. Again, it's not hard, and the documentation covers that, but this video is already long enough, and on top of that, I'm out of time. My wife and I will be making an international trip in a few days, and I haven't packed a single thing, so I need to end this video here. And when I get back, I'll start work on a part 2 video. That'll be much shorter, and it'll cover some of the basics that I just mentioned. In the meantime, have a look at Koba's website and all of the fabulous Apple II and vintage Mac goodies he has for you there. He doesn't pay me to say this, I just like his stuff, and that's why I've done so many videos on K's products. And you'll find a link to all of that and much more in the video description below, so please don't overlook that. And stay tuned, because I have more great content coming, including information about this little guy here. You know what this is? An SE30 reloaded board. Yeah. So I had a highly problematic board that I shipped off to Will Jacobs of KMac Vintage. The actual motherboard itself, the circuit board, is created by Bohl, who's based in Germany, and Will is the only guy on the planet who does the reloaded boards as a service, and I wanted to check his work out. And he moved all of the components from my old board to the new board. He replaced all of the RAM sockets, the ROM socket. He even found a bad Borns filter, and he replaced it. He said, "Do you want a yellow one?" I said, well, he has one of the open style. And I said, yeah, I want to take a look inside. That looks pretty neat. So he replaced it with one of those. I also paid him to change out the real-time clock with a newfangled version that has memory. So even if you don't have a PRAM battery installed, it'll save pretty much every PRAM setting except for the date and time, which is really nice, because I hate it when you leave a PRAM battery out, your mouse slows down and it just bothers you. bothers you. And so this chip takes care of all that. And it also has the newfangled PRAM battery slot, so you can put a button cell in there. It's not going to blow out its guts and destroy your board in the future. And he did a really incredible job. I looked at it under a microscope. It looks like stock soldering. I don't know how he does it by hand. Just absolutely incredible. And he also cleans it with his ultrasonic cleaner, and just immaculately clean. So he did a truly fantastic job, and so I plan to do a video showing the testing of this board in the future. So thank you for watching today, folks, and I wish all of you a fantastic week. Take care. Bye-bye.